Welcome to today's deep dive, where we're going to be tackling
Ooh.
a topic that I think is going to resonate with a lot of our listeners.
Yeah.
It's the kind of tricky relationship between self-acceptance
Yeah.
and our relationships with other people,
Hmm.
with a special focus on family dynamics.
Absolutely.
To help us navigate this topic,
Yeah.
we're going to be taking inspiration and guidance from a book
Okay.
called Love for Imperfect Things by Haemin Sunim.
Such a good book. I think it really reminds us that
There.
embracing our imperfections is really the key to living a more fulfilling life.
I love that.
Yeah.
So there's this section that I was reading in the book called Don't Be Too Good.
Mm-hmm.
And it really made me stop and think
Yeah.
about how many of us were raised to always be good, to always put other people first.
For sure.
Were you that kid?
Oh, yeah.
Always trying to please everyone?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah, me too. And Suna makes this really interesting point in the book. He says that this constant striving to be good
Hmm.
can actually lead us to neglect our own needs and our own desires.
So true.
And that can end up leaving us feeling
Yeah.
depleted and disconnected from who we really are.
Yeah. It's like we're so focused on meeting other people's expectations
Totally.
that we lose track of what we really want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book really delves into the consequences of this constant self-sacrifice.
Right.
And it talks about the psychological impact of suppressed emotions.
He makes a really great analogy in the book.
Okay.
He talks about how stagnant water
Yeah.
becomes toxic.
Right.
And that's kind of like what happens with our emotions.
Wow.
When we don't express them,
Yeah.
when we keep them bottled up,
Right.
they can actually become really harmful to us.
So how can our listeners identify
Yeah, that's a great question.
if they're holding on to these suppressed emotions?
I mean, it could manifest in different ways, right?
Sure.
Like maybe you find yourself constantly trying to please people or struggling to say no
Yeah.
or feeling resentful when your needs aren't being met.
Right.
You might even notice like physical tension in your body,
Oh, yeah.
like headaches or digestive issues.
Wow.
Yeah. So pay attention to those little cues your body's giving you.
That's really good advice.
Thank you.
What I really appreciate about Love for Imperfect Things is that it doesn't just talk about the problem.
Right.
It also offers some really practical advice.
Yeah.
So Sunim really encourages us
Yeah.
to start listening to our own inner voice
Right.
and to find ways to express our feelings authentically.
It's about recognizing that our needs and desires are valid,
Yes.
just as valid as anyone else's,
Exactly.
and taking care of ourselves. It's not selfish.
Right.
It's essential.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
reminds me of that analogy
Yeah.
with the oxygen mask on an airplane.
Oh, yeah.
You have to put your own mask on first
Right.
before you can help anyone else.
Exactly.
But Sunim takes it a step further.
Okay.
He says that even if everyone wants coffee, it's perfectly okay if you prefer a chai latte.
Oh, I love that.
It's about having the courage to speak up for what you want,
Totally.
even in small ways,
Yeah.
as a way to practice self-acceptance.
It's a shift in mindset for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
We often think about self-acceptance as this individual journey,
Mm-hmm.
but it sounds like it's really intertwined with our
Oh.
relationships as well.
For sure.
And speaking of relationships,
Yes.
I think it's a perfect segue into the next part of our deep dive,
Okay. Let's do it.
where we'll be exploring the complexities of family relationships.
Sounds good.
I'm excited to get into
Me
that.
too. So, family.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, it's that first relationship we experience, right?
Absolutely.
The one that really shapes our understanding of love and connection and belonging.
For sure.
And it's those bonds that just keep evolving
Yeah.
as we go through life, bringing us both joy and challenges.
And I think that's why I appreciate so much
Yeah.
how Haemin Sunim approaches this topic of family
Okay.
in Love for Imperfect Things.
Yeah.
Because he really doesn't shy away from the messiness,
Right.
the complicated realities of family.
Exactly.
Especially as our parents get older and our
Yeah.
roles start to shift.
It's interesting, right?
It is.
He has this section in the book called Please Look After Mom.
Okay.
And he shares a really personal experience.
Mhm.
He talks about the moment he found out that his mom was seriously ill.
Oh, wow.
And he was just flooded with guilt and regret.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can.
It's that realization that we haven't been as present
Right.
with our loved ones as we maybe should have been.
Yeah, we get so caught up in our own lives.
Totally.
And we just assume that our parents are always going to be there.
Yeah, it's easy to take them for granted.
And he makes this really interesting observation in the book.
What's that?
He says that we often assume that the people closest to us
Yeah,
already know how much we love them.
right.
So we don't express it as often as we maybe should.
Yeah, we hold back.
Yeah, but those words,
Mm.
those gestures of affection,
Yeah,
they really do matter
we do.
more than we realize.
And Sunim tells this really touching story
Oh.
about leading a meditation session
Okay.
where he asked the participants to visualize holding the hand of a loved one and just sending them blessings.
That's beautiful.
It is. And he said that during that meditation,
Mm.
he was just overwhelmed with this love for his mother.
Aw.
And he spontaneously texted her,
Yeah.
Mom, I love you so, so much.
And what did she say?
It brought her to tears.
Mm.
She was going through a really difficult time.
Yeah.
And it gave her this sense of hope and strength.
That's so powerful.
It is.
How those simple words can have such a profound impact.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
I also thought it was really interesting how he brought up that Korean novel in this chapter.
Oh, yeah. Please look after mom.
Yes, by Hyung-suk Shin.
Right.
And he talks about how the author's decision to use the word mom instead of mother in the title
Right.
really brings out this deeper level of emotional resonance.
I noticed that too when I read the book.
Yeah, it shifts the perspective somehow.
It makes it more personal, right?
Totally.
More intimate.
More vulnerable.
Yeah, it reminds us that our parents are human beings with their own stories and their own struggles.
And it invites us to see them not just as authority figures,
Right.
but as the individuals who loved and nurtured us.
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
So speaking of understanding,
Yeah.
I think it's time to turn our attention
Okay.
to a relationship that can be particularly complex.
Okay.
The relationship between fathers and their children.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is. And I was really fascinated by Sunim's insights on this in understanding our fathers.
I like that section a lot.
Me too. He starts off with this anecdote
Okay.
about his own father who was neglecting his health
Oh.
and refusing to go to the doctor.
Even though he needed to.
Yeah, even though Sunim kept telling him
Wow.
that he needed to go.
And how did that make him feel?
It made him feel really frustrated and worried.
I bet.
It was hard for him to understand
Right.
why his father was being so stubborn.
I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
Totally.
When our parents make choices that we don't agree with.
Especially as they get older,
Yeah.
it can be really hard to navigate those dynamics.
It can be tough to balance respecting their autonomy
Right.
with wanting to make sure they're taking care of themselves.
Exactly.
And I think what Sunim does really well in this section
Yeah.
is he uses his own personal experience
Mm-hmm.
to open up this broader conversation
Right.
about the complexities of father-son relationships.
Yeah. He doesn't pretend to have all the answers. But he offers this framework for understanding.
Which is so valuable.
It is. And he
Yeah.
talks about how generational trauma can impact families for generations.
Yeah, those unspoken wounds,
Right.
those patterns of behavior, they get passed down
Right.
and they create this ripple effect.
Yeah, and it can be really hard to break free from those patterns.
So,
So he invites us to consider how these patterns might be playing out in
Wow.
our own lives.
that's a good question.
Yeah, and I think that leads us perfectly to the next stage of our deep dive, where we're going to be exploring the idea of forgiveness
Ooh.
and how letting go of past hurts can create space for healing.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that.
Me too.
So forgiveness.
You think it's a concept that it's
Yeah.
easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely.
It's something that I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
And Haemin Sunim really acknowledges that complexity
Yeah.
in Love for Imperfect Things. He's not giving us these easy answers.
Right.
He really dives into what it means to actually forgive both ourselves and other people.
There's this section in the book called
Okay.
When Forgiveness is Hard,
Yeah.
and it's where he tackles that common advice.
Right.
Just let it go.
Oh, yeah. We hear that all the time.
But he makes this point that
Yeah.
it's not that easy.
No, it's not.
Have you ever tried
Yeah.
to force yourself to forget something?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Like to erase a painful memory?
It's like trying to wipe chalk off a chalkboard.
Right.
You think you've got it all, but
Yeah.
then there's still those faint lines.
And then sometimes the more we try to suppress it, the more power we give it.
Absolutely.
It's like it has this energy source.
Yeah, and we're just feeding it.
And Sunim's approach is so interesting.
Yeah.
Because he says that true letting go starts with acceptance.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging those disappointments.
And allowing them to exist without judgment.
So instead of fighting against those emotions,
Yeah.
We're creating space for them.
We're letting them breathe.
Exactly.
It's like shifting from being caught in the storm to
Yeah.
becoming the calm eye at the center.
I love that analogy.
And Sunim tells this story in the book about having dinner with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And this friend from the outside seemed to have it all.
Right. Successful, thriving business.
But beneath the surface,
Mm.
he was carrying all of this unresolved anger
Oh, wow.
and hurt from his childhood.
That's so common, though, isn't it?
It is.
We all have those things from our past.
And he shared with Sunim how his aunt
Okay.
used to constantly belittle his mother, and it caused him a lot of shame.
Yeah.
So Sunim suggested this exercise.
Okay. I'm curious.
He said, imagine your aunt is sitting in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
and just allow yourself to express everything that you felt as that hurt, angry child.
To just let it all out.
Yeah.
Raw, unfiltered.
It's almost like giving that younger self a voice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Sunim emphasizes that
Yeah.
this exercise is not about condoning her behavior
Right.
or seeking revenge.
It's about releasing that grip
Yes.
that the past has on us.
And what's amazing is that as this friend went through the exercise, he started to feel compassion for his aunt.
Really?
It was like in that moment of fully feeling his own pain,
Yeah.
he was able to see her pain as well.
Wow. That's powerful.
And that's when he was able to let go
Yeah.
of the need for her approval, the
Mhm.
need for her to acknowledge her wrongdoing.
He was able to forgive,
Yeah.
not because she deserved it, but
Right.
because he deserved peace.
That's such a powerful distinction.
It is.
Forgiveness is not about condoning actions.
Right.
It's about freeing yourself.
Yeah.
And Sunim also talks about the power of apology.
Oh, yeah. That's a big word.
And he acknowledges that sometimes,
Mhm.
even when we offer a sincere apology,
The other person might not be ready to forgive.
right, and that can be really tough.
It
Debbie.
can, especially when we feel like we've done everything we can to make amends.
He says forgiveness is a process.
Right.
It takes time.
And if we're truly remorseful,
Mm.
we need to be patient
Yeah.
and give the other person the space they need.
It's about showing sincerity
Yeah.
through our actions,
Exactly.
not just our words.
And he also reminds us that communication is crucial.
Right. The silent treatment doesn't really work.
It just creates more distance.
Yeah.
So it's about creating a space
Mhm.
for open and honest dialogue.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that leads us to this final piece
Okay.
of our deep dive today,
Yeah.
which is the concept of acceptance.
Ooh, I like that.
Not just of ourselves and others,
Mhm.
but of life itself.
With all its imperfections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Sunim encourages us in the final chapter of Love for Imperfect Things to let go of our need to control everything.
It's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
And to embrace the present moment, even when it's challenging.
Even when it's messy.
Even when it's messy.
Yeah.
He reminds us that we don't have to strive for perfection to
Right.
live a meaningful life.
And it's in those imperfections
Yeah.
that we really find our strengths
Mhm.
and our connection to other people
Absolutely.
and our wisdom.
And he leaves us with this beautiful image.
Oh, I love this one.
He says,
yeah.
if we were to look at our lives as a tapestry woven with both light and dark threads,
Yes.
how might we learn to appreciate the full picture?
That's such a good reminder
It is.
that life isn't meant to be this perfect, seamless thing.
Right.
It's the combination of all of it, the
Yeah.
good and the bad
Yeah.
that makes it beautiful.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today,
Mm-hmm.
we encourage you to check out Love for Imperfect Things for yourself
Such a good book.
and to find those nuggets of wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that resonate with your own journey.
Because the path to self-acceptance and deeper connection, it's not always easy.
But it's a journey worth taking.
It is.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep exploring,
Yeah.
keep learning, and keep loving those imperfect things.